developer Inti Creates is known for several cult classic 2D action adventures, such as the Gunvolt and Mega Man Zero series, but they've recently been branching out in a way that feels somewhat aimless. The newly announced Umbraclaw seemed like a return to form based on its appearance alone, so I've been cautiously optimistic. However, after playing, I'm unsure who Umbraclaw's intended audience is. The package as a whole is an unconventional experience that left me more fulfilled than anything else, but there's still some interesting aspects. Umbraclaw follows Kuon, a cat seeking to escape the realm of the dead to reunite with her owner after dying in the mortal world. This journey initially requires her to collect 4 keystones that will open the way forward, yet the paths to obtain these items are fraught with danger. Besides the typical hazards you'd expect from the underworld, other intelligible creatures have their own motivations stemming from escaping this plane, reveling in it, or something in between. Of course, as a feline, Kuon can't speak, which makes her inherently endearing, as you may unconsciously relate her to a realistic house cat. This potential player-to-character connection, alongside the occasional brief flashbacks featuring Kuon and her owner, is honestly the only collective story beat that you should expect. Unfortunately, none of the others you encounter, nor the setting, have any tethers to stimulate your interest narratively or character-wise. No one is given enough dialogue or screen time to work with, and they lack individual impact. Aside from the narrator and flashbacks, the bosses are the only ones who have speaking roles, and they tend to just spout out their desires or life stories without any flair to captivate you. In all honesty, it comes across as obligatory and dry, even with the well-directed English voice work. Consequently, the only part of the plot thread that may compel you somewhat is the aforementioned protagonist being silent like a real-life cat. At least, that's usually the case. Umbraclaw has its fair share of novel ideas that stand out from your typical 2D action platformer. Most significantly, deaths play an integral role in creating unique playthroughs. While you initially control Kuon, a mostly harmless animal incapable of actively attacking others or performing acrobatic feats, she does have 9 lives. Each death automatically revives Kuon, providing her with a new gameplay ability that can fundamentally level the field. For example, Kuon can gain a double jump, a charge attack, and a slow motion projectile counter. The catch, though, is that the order in these abilities that you learn is random, creating a strange game flow relationship. So while dying seems like the best conclusion to reach at all times, dying too often will corrode Kuon and cause her to transform, becoming far more physically capable at the cost of forgetting her owner. Naturally, if you're seeking a positive outcome for Kuon, you'll want to avoid dying as much as possible in rapid succession. This death mechanic, called Anima Revive, can be reversed after you defeat a boss or revisit the location where you previously defeated one via accumulated hope points. Interestingly, the level design and battles are mostly framed around Kuon's default feline form. The stages have narrow paths that Kuon can crawl through to avoid passages of foes, while her single default combat skill, a dash that grants invincibility frames, builds a gauge that initiates a counterattack. This design choice makes Kuon's death-induced power-ups feel like tacked-on incorporations, offering hollow sensations of power. Defeating enemies and prevailing against obstacles while Kuon is immensely strong doesn't grant any sort of actual fulfillment in a gameplay sense due to the level layouts mostly being inherently framed around her base form. It also doesn't help that you can find collectibles and currency to learn and enhance several skills, most of which are for the death-induced power-ups. With how easy the game tends to be, these upgrades don't uplift the experience, making the process of gathering this currency relatively moot. At most, the ways in which you can upgrade Kuon's essentials, notably her overall health and dash capabilities, will make a genuine difference. The central instances of challenge found throughout Umbraclaw reside in the level design, which sometimes has onslaughts of obstacles or pits that you don't know the extent of. Still, combat lacks challenge to an honestly humorous extent, since the previously mentioned dash you can use to invincibility frame your way through attacks is very generous. Barely any precision is required to perform this dash adequately, and when coupled with the enemy attacks having overly communicated telegraphs, you can see why everything can feel too easy. Even in a few scenarios where I found myself unsure of how a boss performed certain strikes, I possessed death abilities that completely negated any harm the boss could inflict. The lack of difficulty may be attributed to how dying too much can seemingly ruin your playthrough if you lack the currency needed to revert back once you corrode too far. Still, even knowing this, it doesn't improve the meager satisfaction brought about by progression. The other gameplay mode, where Anima Revive is more limited, Novem, is sort of a workaround, but it feels like a band-aid solution. The stage design is where I found the most delight in Umbraclaw, since while it's not especially memorable or special, a few gimmicks differentiate certain levels from the rest of the pack. One of my favorite gimmicks was where the gravity would reverse itself whenever you fell off of a ledge, creating moderately engaging platforming sequences. Still, these instances are merely fleeting in a sea of possible mediocrity. Umbraclaw at least thrives with its visuals. The aesthetics of the afterlife is endearingly grotesque in a cartoonish sort of way. The various bosses and a few of the regular enemies you encounter stand out similarly too. The experience as a whole felt polished as well, with no crashes or detectable bugs while boasting a consistent frame rate docked and undocked on Switch. If you're seeking an unconventional platformer, then Umbraclaw may scratch that itch. Alas, the uniqueness derived from its death defiance is lukewarm, indecisive, and at times feels contrary to the game design. The narrative encouragement to remain as cat-like as possible clashes with the gameplay bonuses achieved by the learnable, powerful skills earned from death. Even when considering multiple endings, this middling focus deteriorates the incorporation of stage-like designs and bosses, since the transformation aren't adequately catered to, made worse by the random arrivals. But still, this myriad of features may click with you better than me, and for the price tag, I can see myself recommending this game as a unique platformer released this year. Noisy Pixel is giving Umbraclaw a 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.